So I just got two things for you real quick. Number one, God always hears the prayers of his people. And number two, God never backs down from a challenge. And I want to show you this in 1 Kings chapter 17, where King Ahab has just become king of Israel. And the text tells us that King Ahab was literally the most wicked king in all of Israel. There had never been a king as wicked as him, so much so that the Bible says that he sorely vexed God, that God was like angered at King Ahab because he kept on setting up these false idols. He brought in Baal, he worshiped other gods. And this was supposed to be the king of Israel who was supposed to lead the people to worship the one true God, which is Yahweh. And so Elijah comes on the scene and Elijah's like, King Ahab, we know everything you're doing. You're not slick. And I just want to tell you, it's not going to rain until I say it's going to rain. Now, this is a major indictment upon King Ahab because the land was everything to the people. The land is what produced the harvest, which allowed them to feed their livestock, which provided food for their tables. And it really was their life source. And so for Elijah to say it's not going to rain, essentially he's cutting off the life flow of resources into Israel because King Ahab was setting up these false gods. And if you fast forward to 1 Kings chapter 18, it all comes to head on top of Mount Carmel, where King Ahab comes and Elisha comes, and there is this showdown between the prophets of Baal and the prophets of God, and they're saying who is really God, who's really in control. And you know the story. God allows fire to come down from heaven and to consume Elisha's sacrifice, basically showing everyone that all of these false gods that King Ahab has established really are not gods at all, but there is one true Lord in Israel. That tells me that God never backs down from a challenge. But if you seek God and you pray to God and you say, God, this is what your word says. We're believing you. We're claiming your promise that God will always show up for his people. But let me just tell you the first part, because the first lesson is that God always hears his people. And we learned that because Elijah was just another man like you and me. In fact, if you fast forward to James in the New Testament, James in chapter 5, I just want to read for you real quick what James says. He says in chapter 5 and verse 16, that the effectual fervent prayers of a righteous man avails much. For Elijah was a man with a nature like yours, like mine, and he prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3 years and 6 months. 3 years and 6 months, it did not rain. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain and produced its fruit. That shows us right now that God hears the prayers of his people. The text says that the effectual, fervent prayers of a righteous man availeth much. What that does is it encourages us to never stop praying. It says a righteous man, not in that this man is perfect and never makes a mistake, but the essence of righteousness, as the New Testament defines it, is someone who truly believes in God. Abraham believed in God, and it was accounted to him or attributed to him as righteousness. And so it is that when we go to God truly believing that this is your word, and we're believing in your ability to work on behalf of your people, and we seek God's face, God not only will hear our prayer, but he will work miracles on our behalf. And so I am challenging you over these next 30 days to partner with us at Relove and to say, God, we're going to start claiming your word. We're going to start circling our nation. We're circling our communities. We're circling our families. We are believing that you are going to bring a presence over our country, a presence over our church that will protect us, that will preserve us, and that will prepare us for what you are trying to do in this place. Two things. God always hears the prayers of his people, and God never backs down from a challenge.